One of our biggest mistakes were expecting our digital value proposition to translate to retail. And I mentioned our early packaging in 2020, 2021, that was ingredient first. And we did not do enough consumer research at that time where we thought ingredient first, because it worked digitally, would translate to retail sales and sell through. And it really didn't. Is we got that packaging on shelf and people didn't understand the value prop. People didn't care what was in the cleaning products. People cared what was not in the cleaning products, what it was free from, but not what was it made of. And it's such a simple difference, but it was so powerful that our early packaging just did not work in retail. And obviously that was, economical challenges. There was transition challenges because we had to completely redefine, all of the packaging in retail.
You're listening to CPG Launch Leaders, the show where we interview new product trailblazers. Get ready for inspiration and secrets from the front lines of CPG innovation. Now here are our hosts, Darcy Ramler and Alan Peretz.
Welcome to CPG Launch Leaders. I'm Alan Peretz, and I'm here with my co-host, Darcy Ramler. Today, we're going to have a chat with Ryan Lupberger. Ryan is the CEO and co-founder of Cleancult, the first company in the world to package cleaning products into recyclable cartons. Cleancult has been growing fast since launching in 2016, first on their direct-to-consumer site, and now at major retailers. This is one cult leader that we're excited to meet.
That's right, Alan. Ryan will be telling us all about the first aha moment that began the creation of Cleancult, how the pivot from e-commerce to retail shelves brought big changes to their packaging and value proposition, and how their latest innovation is helping retailers reach their sustainability goals while meeting shoppers where they are. Let's get this thing started.
Ryan, we're beyond excited to have you on to share the story about the launch of Cleancult. Before we dive in, we love to start each episode with one particular question. Currently, what new product has caught your attention in the market?
Yeah, so I think for me, it is one new product. It's called Nori. It is a steamer that is actually handheld. And I think for me, it's one of the most interesting solutions because, a lot of my fiance, for example, uses steamers and she takes it all around, and obviously, or just crazy hair irons that you pull into hotel rooms. And, it's a problem that's being solved by the product that was never designed for it. So it's an iron that is, V-shaped, and it's just like a hair straightener, but made for clothes. So I think it's a really beautiful, simple solution.
So let's start at the beginning of your story. Can you tell us a little bit about how Cleancult got started?
Yeah. So personally, I'm born and raised in Boulder, Colorado. So always been kind of natural, crunchy. My parents were pretty out there. Someone called them hippies and grew up in this better for you food, personal care products just across my home, right? We always ate better. We were vegans for quite some time. And then I went out to business school on the East Coast at Babson, and it's all about starting businesses and entrepreneurship. And when I was there, I looked at the back of my bottle of laundry detergent and didn't see any ingredients listed. And frankly, you had this odd moment. It was, why aren't there ingredients here? There's ingredients on my food, on a lot of personal care products, and it was, why aren't there on my cleaning products? So did a lot of research, and it turns out that in the US, there is no requirement to regulate ingredients on or in cleaning products. So it's a really crazy space. And the more research I did, the more, frankly, it was just a wow to me is, there's all this regulation for what goes into our body, but all these chemicals on our body and around our body are completely unregulated, right? So in the US alone, there's over 1,400 chemicals that are banned in Europe that are allowed here, just in personal care and cleaning, right? So it's just a crazy space. So had this kind of aha, why? And then looked at all the better for you products out there, Method, Mrs. Meyer, Seventh Generation, Baby Ganex, really wonderful brands, but they all use plastic, right? For me, it was how can all these better for the world cleaning products be better for the world if they use so much petroleum packaging, right? And if you look in a store in Walmart, for example, you go through that laundry aisle, it is the heaviest amount of plastic in the grocery store, generally, right? At least in the consumables, and it's that laundry aisle. So just said, there's a lot of uncertain chemicals, unregulated, there's a lot of plastic, and there's no one doing anything better. So we basically said, could we create a brand that used better ingredients, better packaging in a way that was really easy to use? And that's kind of when Cleancult was born, let's call it.
So it sounds like knowing the product came to you, as you described it, as that aha moment or a lightning bolt, like the light went on and there it was. But we know the road to retail products is complex. And we all are aware about that. So can you talk a little bit about how you approached early product development with that in mind?
Yeah, so we've had a long and winding journey. I would say we're probably on product iteration 9 almost at this point. So we really almost took 2.5 years from concept to launch. So we actually just started with better cleaning formulations and did a lot of research on the ingredient side, but it didn't stick. We ran a Kickstarter 2016, just didn't click, right? We then went 2017. We said, how do we develop even better ingredients, more power, less plastic? Indiegogo didn't stick. Wasn't until 2018 that another light bulb went off. It's like, well, what about milk cartons? And turns out very hard to do, but we finally launched in 2019. So today, our system is you start with a filled and refillable aluminum bottle. And they are the first aluminum bottles in the household cleaning industry that come filled. And then you refill them with soap cleaners or laundry detergent in a milk carton instead of a plastic bottle. Right. So it really took years and years and years to get to this system of how do we meet shoppers where they are at a price that's competitive without any behavior change in a way that's really able to be in retail.
So you were the very first company in the world to put soap products into milk cartons. How did you go to market with this?
Yeah, it took a long time. I'll keep saying that. We call dog years. We'll be the overnight 10-year success story is what we say in the office. So, right, 2016 problem, tried all these different alternatives digitally, didn't really click, kind of launched, kind of didn't launch. And it wasn't until 2018 that we had this aha milk carton, right? That's what we needed to start with. No one else had done it, and everyone said it was impossible. They said you couldn't put a viscous and or high pH product on paper packaging. It's going to leak, it's going to explode, you can't commercially manufacture it at scale. And I think, frankly, some because of we didn't know, right? Naivety. I think you hear it from a lot of your guests, but we said, I think we can't. So we searched the world for a milk carton machine that would be able to be run soap on. We bought one and we Frankensteined it and innovated for years. And we had an enormous amount of challenges. When we put the soap on the machine, it didn't actually go through the filling system. It foamed like crazy. So we had inches of soap on our production floor in 2019. When we finally got it in the soap, because we use it's called a gravity fill instead of a piston fill. Piston fill foams. Gravity fill is, you think about really thick laundry detergent, is how do you do that at scale? It's very challenging. But when we got it in the carton, it leaked. So we had 30% shrinkage in 2019, right? And negative gross margins. So it really took almost 3 years from 2019 through 2021 to get to a point that it would hold the product. It could hold the product at scale, millions of units, and then be cost effective. But at the time, it was stressful, to say the least.
Ryan, with the supply chain and shelf, that product has to be stable for a long time, right?
Yeah, so at a minimum, it's 2 years, right? And that took a lot of testing and a lot of customization, right? So it's not a standard milk carton that we have. It is specific bottom fold, specific side seals. Is when you think of a plastic bottle, one of the reasons it's not sustainable is it ships with empty air, right? So when you get a pallet, let's call it, of empty plastic bottles, you're roughly 95% air on that pallet. Whereas our products actually come flat. So you can fit about 26 times the amount of flat cartons pre-production to the production floor. Now, the challenge of that, it's like origami. So when it actually gets on our milk carton machine, you basically literally create this milk carton, you seal the bottom, sides, and tops, and then you fill it. So every temperature, every setting, every pressure valve has to be, and it has to be right depending on the formulation, right? Laundry is completely different to all purpose, completely different to hand. So it's just taken a long time to get that right in the market.
So I know you said you had early successes through your social content too, some of the things that you were putting out there. Can you tell us some of Cleancult's most viral moments as you guys went to market?
Yeah, so launched in 2019 and started 100% direct to consumer. So the way our early model worked is you buy your first box, and that came with empty or refillable bottles. and then a milk cartons. And then on a monthly recurring basis, could be bi-monthly, quarterly, every 6 months, you'd get additional cartons to refill those bottles, right? So that was the model in the early first 3 years. And actually, we started the business in Puerto Rico, and there's a long story to why we did that. Got early grant funding, early support from the SBIR, which is a big national grant in science agency. About a quarter of our team is still located on the island, but we have a lot of really fun stories from that 2016 to 2019. So we made this really funny video with my co-founder and I. We were shirtless for about 15% of the video about why Puerto Rico and why milk cartons and why our model and why ingredients, and had a ton of fun with it. And then really that was our big launch video. Got over 20 million views through YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and was really our main marketing vehicle through 2022 effectively. So that one piece of content, and it was just at a time where not many people were doing it. I think it's become a little bit more saturated now, really hit in the right time. And I think, especially in this category, it's boring, right? You walk shelves and it's just boring branding, the same orange, blue. So I think, this cult community and then cult branding really leveled up that launch. So that was our first major moment.
So as you brought on retail in addition to DTC, how did you think about marketing? Were you marketing to both channels, or were you marketing more to one?
So there's kind of been 3 stages of our business. Phase 1 was, is this commercially feasible? Can we actually do this? Phase 2 was, can we launch digitally? And we did. And we built a fairly large business. But everyone buys cleaning products in a retail environment, right? It's about 97% of total volume is in Walmart, Target, and grocery stores, right? And that's makes sense. It's our general behavior. So we knew that this brand had to win in retail, and that was always our vision. That said, I think it happened, frankly, a little quicker than we expected. In late 2021, 22, we had shipping costs 2x. We used to be able to ship our products for about $7. It's now $14, and it's just very challenging economically. We had the Facebook iOS shift and change, right? Which made a lot of our performance marketing get much more challenging. So we frankly were faced with a choice. It's, do we go all in retail? And that's what we did. So we made the decision that we still have a robust digital business model, but it is now mostly organic. And retail is our main business, as well as where all of our growth is coming from. So launched in Walmart in 2023 nationwide. In 2022, we tested the waters with Meijer, Bed Bath, Walgreens, CVS. And now we're up to almost 8,000 doors, 70,000 points of distribution, and continuing to grow nationwide.
Talk about marketing and how you really leaned into the name. There's a fun play on words that you guys are always doing, so creative. And then also a bit of a loyalty following. And, the cult is the real deal when it comes to the brand.
Yeah. So, and Alan, I think you also mentioned the question is how did we market in retail? So getting into retail for us is a pretty, I don't want to say easy process, but we have a clear path. Today, a lot of the retailers want reduced plastic solutions, and there's not many alternatives out there right now. So, we're in Albertsons, Safeway, Walmart. We're talking to, a lot of the big players. And today we represent basically the best solution to reduce plastic on their shelves while meeting shoppers where they are. And that's continuing kind of our vision is it's not a concentrate. It's not a dilutable. You don't have to become a scientist. It's just a really clean refill without the plastic, right? So that's where we get in retail. But selling through retail is a challenge. We have a milk carton on a house of cleaning shelf. It's why customers have never seen this before. Who is Cleancult? Why is it this crazy brand? And digital is, you can tell that story. Our long form video that had 20 million views, 3 minutes long, right? We could say ingredients, founder story, best friends, quirky Boulder kid. You could go across 9 different value props in a really easy to digest way, where in store, we couldn't. So in 2022, we frankly had some pretty dynamic packaging failures on shelf. We led with ingredients, and we called it cocoa bubble packaging because we use biodegradable ingredients based in coconut, and didn't work. People thought it was juice. People thought it was all these quirky products, and it didn't win on shelf. It's the digital packaging and value prop did not work. So basically spent all of 2022 tweaking it, understanding customers, talking to customers. It was how can we get this first moment on shelf right? And we did. So you ask about the Cleancult. We completely changed our logo in 2023 with a rebrand that launched in January of this year. It's still 2023, so earlier this year. Completely new packaging, completely new color palette, and really leaned into cutting through the noise on that shelf while creating the movement that is Cleancult, right? A true community of no plastic fanatics, really humorous. So you can see, our packaging here. Our side is some cults are toxic, not us. Really clean cult, a really clear brand block that's both natural but also effective in that dark blue. So, I think number one, we focus on our packaging. That was the number one thing we could get. Is you already have this wow moment on shelf of why is this box carton on this in a cleaning shelf? So you have that brand blocking, but it's like, how do we, effectively get our value prop out to the customer? So that was our number one way, is truly just getting the packaging right for our customers.
Ryan, do you think people are discovering you at shelf, or have they found you online before they actually show up in the store?
I think a lot of our new customers are finding us on shelf. A lot of new customers are finding us on Amazon. A lot of them are existing subscribers, and we call them cult members, right? Join the Cleancult. But in store, I think is a big trial driver for us. And I think we're continuing to see that. Is Path to Purchase just released a really good study, is 14% of what's called Amazon or online customers will try a brand if it's new. Where in store, it's up to 34%. So if they like the brand on shelf, if they understand the why, it's going to be a big trial driver for us. So I think for us, it's that packaging just really has to sing on shelf, and we've spent a lot of time making that right.
Well, and especially for the consumer with things that have sense to them, right? Being able to smell, it's easy to go on Amazon and say, okay, lavender, great. I want to try that. But in store, being able to smell, there's an experience that comes along with what is, your laundry going to smell like, your hands going to smell like, so forth.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. So it's one of our favorite things, quirkiest things, is you kind of hide behind the shelves and watch people shop for cleaning products. And people will sit in front of hand soap aisles for 5 minutes, making sure is the right sense, is what is rhubarb, what is blue sage, is really understanding that sensorial kind of experience. So, I think I mentioned at the beginning of it though, but milk curtains are really hard to smell because people don't feel comfortable actually opening this gable top. So that was one of our biggest learnings of this year, right? Is, we mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, but originally we were empty refillable glass bottles with milk cartons to refill. Earlier this year and next year, we launched our first ever filled aluminum bottles. And one of the main reasons for that, other than the recyclability, the sustainability, and meeting, again, the shoppers where they are with price, was so people could smell it. And it's a really simple solution, but it's like we found that people were unwilling to open milk curtains and smell them where they are with plastic bottles, right? Or with aluminum bottles. So it's a huge reason for us.
When you think about shopper psychology, right? What's the only time outside of this that you open a milk carton and smell it? It's usually to determine if it goes bad, right? So in your head, we're already trained like this is a negative experience. So it reduces a barrier, like you said, that maybe shoppers don't even know exists for them. So I know we're talking about going to retail and the retail shelf. When you really were looking at it, obviously there's the value-minded mom, there's the green shoppers. Who was your target consumer as you were going to retail shelf, and have you found anything different as you kind of are exploring?
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think the D2C model, you can hyper target a very specific group of customers. So early on, it was how do we target the new mom? Right? How do we target the pet owner? How do we target someone that's hyper focused on making sure they know the chemicals and the ingredients in their home? Right? We did that digitally. Now we're really focused on expanding that to, frankly, the mass audience and to everyone from 20, 60, 70 in a host of different whys they have. So our kind of customer originally was a much smaller segment, and now it's a much larger segment because of how we have to win on shelf. Is if you're at Walmart, you can't just work for a customer that is, dark green or hyper focused on ingredients. You have to work for almost everyone, right? Or they're going to kick you out of the stores. So again, we spent a lot of time with that. So finally, it's taken us, 6-7 years, but we're now price parity to all the leading plastic brands, and $5 for our 16-ounce and 12-ounce product, and then $7.99 or $7.49 for a 32-ounce. So that was a huge piece of the equation. Two, we've really again radically shifted our packaging to focus on efficacy and what's free from versus what's in. And that was a really important distinction for our packaging. And I think thirdly, it's just making this bottle as premium as possible. So it's not just about someone who cares about ingredients or cleaning, but it's someone that really wants to show off their home. So, you ask who, it's so many interesting data points we're getting because we have 80-year-olds who love it because it's lighter than other products. We have, 60-year-olds that love it because they're trying to make a real statement with their families on reducing plastic. We have people on the right that also want to reduce, petroleum use, people on the left because they like the environmental angle. So I say all that just because I think we've really tried to design this. It's how do we solve the plastic problem in cleaning? And to do that, it had to be for almost everyone, but rooted in true believers, the cult of clean that are, hyper targeted.
Well, and it's a great time to go to market because you have retailers like Walmart that are putting big initiatives behind, the environment and really what, they're really trying to bring in products that are speaking to those initiatives that they put out.
Yep, agreed. And it's not just Walmart. I would say it's one of the most exciting times right now. Clorox, Henkel, Unilever, Walmart, Target, Albertsons, Kroger, they all have very aggressive 2025, 2030, and 2050 goals that they want to create 100% recyclable, 30 to 50% refillable, 30% compostable or biodegradable, and they're lofty, right? And they think they're going to struggle. So our whole vision is, again, how do we help these retailers get there, but without hurting their frankly, growth, without hurting their dollars. And that's been the real vision for this brand. It's how do we shift the category, but without shifting behavior? How do we shift plastic out, but without actually hurting their growth and their dollars? And that's really been what we've been trying to balance for, the last 5-6 years.
So you talked about retail. Can you tell us a bit more about early selling experiences and how did that work? And what was the value prop that you brought to the buyers?
Yeah, so it's evolved, right? I don't come from a retail background, so I'd say early selling experiences were not good for me. Understanding the different, frankly, verbs, structure, how to even structure an agreement in this space. So early, I think we've grown and learned quite a bit. But, I think it goes back to you have kind of three different segments here. You have conventional cleaning, which is kill, kill, kill. And that really exploded during World War II. Everyone bought machines, right? So this big middle class came around after, the 50s, 60s, 70s. And everyone started to get, focused on cleaning products. Then you had the 90s and 7th generation came around and they said, why are we using all these crazy petroleum-based ingredients? How do we do this with natural alternatives, green alternatives, better for you alternatives? And they totally transformed an industry. But, they sold to hippies, super dark green. It was people that lived in the most sustainable ways back then. Then 2000, you had Method come around and said, why are we just selling to the smaller audience? What if we make natural, beautiful, attractive, easy to use, and really sexy packaging, right? And they did. And then you had Mrs. Myers, late 2000s, saying, how do we make this scent-driven and experiential? For us, the last wave here is plastic. Is all these brands have only got about 80% of the way there. They've delivered pretty good clean, pretty good ingredients. We believe we have much better, but still sometimes decent. But they have just so much plastic packaging. So our big pitch to the retailers is we want to deliver, as good cleaning power, as good price and margin, beautiful scents and experiences, but in a way that uses a lot less plastic. It was that simple. And, frankly, they had failed a lot and continue to fail with tablets, liquid vials, concentrates, vinegar. There's all these other reduced waste solutions that have just failed on their shelves, right? So I think, frankly, they're begging for a solution, but that the customer is willing to adopt. And that's been this really interesting balance is hitting their reduced waste goals, but in a way that the shopper is actually ready to adopt. And that's kind of been our pitch and our value to each of these retailers.
I know you've said you've worked to evolve to continue to meet the shopper where they are. So obviously originally starting in the D2C space and then moving to the retail shelf. Do you feel, I know we talked a little bit about the packaging changes that have happened as you move to shelf and a bit of the rebranding of the logo and so forth. Do you feel any of your value proposition had to change as you moved to that retail shelf?
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, our entire formulation stack changed as well. So, there's two very different ways to formulate soap. There's a Castile soap formulation, which is um, basically like a Dr. Bronner's, right? Which is really green, very natural. And there's a surfactant-based way to formulate soap, which is more of a coconut-derived or coconut-based biodegradable formulation. So originally, we had Castile. And had Castile for a host of reasons, but it gunks. It's a little bit harder to use. It gets a little bit grosser on your different products in that kind of neck. So, but it is really easy to pronounce ingredients. So hyper easy to understand. So first was the packaging. Second was the price. We needed to get the price aligned with the leading brands. And that was a really key aha moment. No one was willing to pay a premium. Premium to conventional, yes, but not a premium to natural. So the zero waste solution was not enough to get someone to pay more. So they're willing to switch if it's the same price, but not willing to pay more if it's for this model. So that was a really key aha. And the third was our formulations. So we spent another 3 years basically rebuilding all of our formulations from Castile to surfactant. So it's all coconut based, clear, hypernatural, biodegradable, but a very different set that competes more with the Mrs. Meyers versus with the Dr. Bronner's. So it's frankly like a wholesale change from start to finish.
Hi, Jesse. What brings you to the airport?
Mike, I'm off to the headquarters to share an update on the big launch.
Oh, I've heard it's selling really well. Care to share your secret?
Well, just between us, it's all thanks to Bold Labs. Their exclusive digital test market research allows you to optimize your product, marketing, and pricing before the big launch.
That sounds fantastic. How can I learn more?
Just visit www.boldlabs.com. It's all right there.
This is the final call for Flight 723 to Chicago.
Looks like we'd better go. Thanks for the tip, Jesse.
See you soon, Mike. And remember, Bold Labs is ready to help your product soar.
So we do a fair amount of work with better for you brands and natural brands. And what we found overall is that usually the natural ingredients can work as well as a lot of the chemicals. But are there any challenges that you've run across in formulation, focused on natural?
For us, we think it's much more perception based than the reality. I think you hit the nail on the head. This year we won the Good Housekeeping Best Laundry Detergent of 2023 award, and we have a better for you formulation. But consumers really can't tell. I mean, it's been studied about a 10% differential. So even if the leading brands are 5, 7, 8% better with hyper aggressive petroleum based ingredients, even if we're within that 10%, it's imperceptible, right, from most consumers' experience. So I think to answer your question, no, I think the challenge is the perception. And it depends. Hand soap's a little bit easier because you're not looking for kill, you're looking for the experience. Is it moisturizing? Dish soap is hard. It's a really hard category because people love that blue bottle, and people, even if they hide it when guests are over, right, it is hyper effective and foams really well and cleans really nicely. But it has some challenges with the downstream effect with those ingredients. All purpose, there's a middle ground. I think when you go into your bathroom and you're what's called bathing your toddler, you're much more inclined to use one of our products or a better for you product. But if you're on that toilet, you're going to use something that is very effective. So I think to answer your question, there's no one solution fits all, depending on the room, depending on how, depending on when. But we're really trying to level that experience up and start to challenge that perception. That's always been what we've been trying to do.
I worked on that blue bottle years ago, and I'll tell you that the amount of time that they spend engineering the experience, to your point, including how much it foams and of course the scent, is just such a big part of product design.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons, again, it's the best category. I love this category because of how many people interact with it every day, how important it is for people's lives, but also how few startups are in it. It's a graveyard of household cleaning product startups over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And there's very limited upstarts in the category because it's really hard to do. You're competing against big conglomerates with a lot of money to do things like that in a way that's new and innovative. So, it's been a challenge. We frankly, our core values, it's endurance and optimization. And those two things I think have got us here because it's nimbleness, right? Like keep mentioning Change V9 products. We think we're in a really good space, nationwide distribution, a lot of more retailers, a ton of growth. But we have additional packaging updates we want to do. We have additional formulation additions we want to do. We have additional products we want to launch, right? It's how do we continue to evolve this brand to be really on the leading edge, quarter over quarter.
And you talk about innovating. And what I've kind of loved hearing you talk about is you're not just innovating new products, you're constantly innovating your current products. So it's a little bit of both. You're expanding into new categories, but you're constantly, like you said, optimizing and innovating those. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the tools or research that you lean into as you focus on that innovation?
Yeah, when I think to your point, we started with brand with, refillable glass vessel, which are still my favorite in my home. They're beautiful, but, they didn't meet the shoppers where they are as much as others, right? They're still did fairly well in retail. They still are going to be a part of our portfolio, but we really talked to the shopper and they said, look, I need a $5 filled bottle that I can smell, I can use, I can experience before I'm ready to buy that refill, right? So, I think it's partly that focus is how do we continue to talk to these shoppers and continue just to not have any like holy cows here, right? Being open to grow and change and pivot and making sure those changes. So that's always been our number one. Resources, talk to your shoppers. I think it's like the most basic thing that so many companies go wrong is they see the white space in the market or it's their problem, but they never validate it. And like, even if it's just like we always have our shelf set up behind us because this is a cleaning shelf. It's a cleaning products company. So we try to, as much as possible, talk to our shoppers. And there's a bunch of good testing agencies. There's companies like Polefish that do packaging testing 1-to-1. There's companies like we use, a big testing agency called Robert Cooper, and that's a bunch of packaging research that we do. But for us, comes down to talking to your shoppers because they're going to tell you, right? And it's not just talking to, it's talking to and not leading them where you want them to go, but really hearing what they have to say. And there's ways to do it anonymously and making sure they don't know it's your product, but setting up shelves and having the products so you can really get unbiased reads. So those are probably the biggest resources. But again, just coming down to like put your product in front of people and seeing how they react.
Absolutely. Because when you're going on shelf, like you said, driving that trial becomes a different barrier than when you launched at D2C and you can tell the whole story. And that person was invested in the story. So to buy two products, essentially the bottle and the refill, now you're able to drive trial and find that solution.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So you've had a lot of growth in recent years. How has sales and marketing changed for you as you've grown?
Yeah. So, we talked about it, D2C through 2021. That was our main focus. A lot of performance paid advertising, a lot of video advertising, social advertising. It's really shifted. So now we do a lot of in-person work. We do a lot of, end caps, a lot of on-shelf advertising. I think the industry is frankly trying to figure out where to go from here is now how do we leverage digital advertising in a retail environment? So I think it's frankly a big question. Is, today, what is most important? What's most important, we have the right placement on shelf and the right, let's call it place on shelf next to the right brands. We have the right price. We have a really differentiated model, aluminum and refills. That's, not anywhere else in the world. We have really good promotions. So the right promotions going on at the right time, making sure you get, Mother's Day right and Black Friday and all the different times of year. Outside of that, that's the next big question is we are a digital leader on Walmart.com. They've written, a few case studies now on us. We're one of the best selling online household cleaning products with them. It's still a challenge, how do you push people online into store? So we're experimenting with, a couple new platforms right now in giving free options for shelf, having people share. We use a big influencer program going right now to basically people actually have to apply and post a bunch of pictures with them interacting with products on shelf. But there's no, I think, silver bullet for us. I think it's getting it right little by little. And then the next question is how do we catch fire, right? So TikTok's a big focus, obviously. Influencer a big focus. But I think before all this, it's just getting the basics right. And I think so few brands get the basics right on shelf. And they try to do all this advertising and marketing before they understand if they're actually ready for that moment. So we're really trying to make sure that we're focused.
Ryan, you said you started very grassroots, or as you would say, the granola kid from Colorado, with a passion, a bit of a passion project. Obviously, you didn't have CPG background, but yet now you're responsible for launching a fast-growing CPG brand. Can you kind of explain a little bit about how you went to expanding your team and what roles were key in executing your approach to grow that retail presence?
Yeah, I think for us, it's knowing that the founder is such an important role, the CEO is such an important role, but in the end, it's your team that make the difference, and really taking ego aside. And I think a lot of first-time founders don't bring in really tenured executives for whatever reason. We've always made the choice to bring in the smartest, best, and most really experienced people in this category. So early on, we brought in the VP of sales from Method, who was there, through effectively the acquisition. We brought in now the head of marketing from Method, the VP of sales from Method, the COO from Method. So we're, almost 40, 50% ex-Method alums at this point. And we've just been really intentional with how do we build the right team that understands the space and helps me answer the questions that I don't know to ask. And I think humility is important. I think learning is important. And I think there's just being the lifeblood of the team and focus on culture and focusing on vision and strategy. With the right team at the right time, we could build anything. So we've just really focused on bringing in the right group, and then making sure they enjoy working here and we have fun as much as we can. And just really focusing on how do we meet the shopper where they are. That's been our biggest goal internally.
So you talked about your early viral campaign and how successful that was. Can you tell us about some other campaigns or marketing programs that have been particularly successful for you?
We have a great cult video going on right now that has been a big win for us, got covered by Adweek and had some others. But, I'll say with the shifts of the algorithms, it doesn't necessarily move the needle. So I think what we're really now focused on is what is that grassroots campaign that tells this story, but that moves the needle in retail. We have a couple really fun campaigns going on next year that are interesting, cut through the noise, all grassroots and very cult-based. And that's all I'll say. But yeah, there's some really exciting pieces. And then I think the most successful recent campaign was our ready-to-use press launch. Is that obviously we were first to market with the milk cartons. We're also now first to market with filled and refillable aluminum products and additional purpose. And that just gained a lot of steam. I think press is still a big driver in both national media and also just TV generally. So that launch and really creating a first to market product really helped move the needle.
Exactly. So I know, Ryan, we've talked about, obviously, you guys have had successes, but we always believe the lessons learned really kind of fall into those failures. Is there one that you feel in particular, a failure that you really could point to that was a great lesson learned for you or for the company in general?
Yeah, I think for us, and I think I've mentioned it before, one of our biggest mistakes were expecting our digital value proposition to translate to retail. And I mentioned our early packaging in 2020, 2021, that was ingredient first. And we did not do enough consumer research at that time where we thought ingredient first because it worked digitally would translate to retail sales and sell through. And it really didn't. Is we got that packaging on shelf and people didn't understand the value prop. People didn't care what was in the cleaning products. People cared what was not in the cleaning products, what it was free from, but not what was it made of. And it's such a simple difference, but it was so powerful that our early packaging just did not work in retail. And obviously that was, economical challenges. There was transition challenges because we had to completely redefine, all of the packaging in retail. We had to switch over 12, 13 different retailers, challenges from an inventory perspective, lock codes, UPCs. So that was a big issue for us is, again, expecting it would translate and not doing enough work for that packaging to really make it sing. So that was almost, a 16-month timeline that from the time we realized and launched in early retail to the time we got the packaging right was, almost 16 months that, we wish we would have back to some extent.
So Ryan, now that your focus is really the retail side of things, how does your website fit in?
Yeah, so the website is still a big part of the business. It is where our closest customers and core subscribers live and interact with us. We have a full-time CX team internally, and I think for us, it's that cult of clean is still our brand ambassadors. They're still the people that we talk to the most. It's still the people that call out all of our problems. If we make an ingredient shift, do people like it? Do they like it? If we, have a really humorous brand like this, is it too much? Does it go too far? Like which things are humorous or which things are insulting? And it's a fine balance there. So for us, it's the brand billboard. It's where a lot of people go to find out where we are in retail. So we have a very robust, where to shop nationwide, but it's also where we interact with our subscribers. So everyone has their own subscriber portal. We've really spent a lot of work trying to in-house that as much as possible, is connecting with customers, connecting with people and understand their problems with the set as much as possible.
There was a big play even from retailers or even from brands this year about Black Friday or Cyber Monday and really providing extra discounts or deeper discounts to the valued consumers. So it was, an interesting way where people were approaching kind of that loyalty and rewards and really being grateful to the shoppers that continue, as you said, to be a part for you guys of the Cleancult. But in general, I do think you're seeing more coming from brands and retailers to say, hey, thank you for being a loyal consumer.
Agreed. And that's where we're most excited, frankly, about with some of the digital programs we're doing with the Bold team is really leveraging this free product or discounted product in store. And how do we start to promote that digitally? So few brands have done it right yet. I think we're really trying to be on the cutting edge. It's super exciting. It's early days, but those are one of the big promotions, the big activations that if we're able to translate this, is how do you develop performance marketing for retail? It could be the next big wave. I don't think everyone's got it quite right yet, but I think we're close. So that's what we're trying to do as much as possible.
Absolutely. And understanding which shoppers are shopping in store with an app, who has their phone in hand. There's a lot to go into what drives to that retail shelf. So I know we've talked about Cleancult's launch story beginning in 2016. What would you say is different in 2023 about product innovation and launches?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more hope in 2016. And I say hope not in terms of optimism for the world, but in consumer behavior shifting. Is in 2016, I think we retailers, the world hoped that people were willing to shift to solve plastic, climate, anything, frankly, the big problems we have. And I think the unfortunate yet okay reality is that consumers are people, right? And people are people. And as much as we'd like to hope that we have to solve big problems with shifting behavior, it's really, really hard to do. So I think from 2016, again, a host of concentrates came into the market and didn't work. A host of dilutables came into the market and didn't work. And frankly, we believe a rising tide lifts all ships. We would love those brands to work because it creates a new category of reduced waste. We had these, tablets come into the space and it's really challenging on shelf, right? Digital is a little different story. So I think from 2016 to now, there's been a realization. It's that the shopper, as much as they're willing to change and take action, they're only willing to change and take action in a way that meets them where they are. And I know I've said it, a host of times in this interview, but it's, yes, they're willing to solve problems, but if it's not inconvenient. So I think that's been the biggest shift in our mindset is it's been a hope to a reality is making sure we meet them where they are versus hoping that they're willing to change to solve these problems. And I think, we are people and that's never going to change. And just making sure we exist and still solve big issues within the realms of being people.
I think it's still, when you talk about things that are affecting the environment and so forth, it's still that big gap of people eating healthier, eating more organic. You hear that always is some of it, it's that price point, it's the different things. So the closer we get, like you said, to the consumer, the more I think we can evolve really and affect things that are going to change the environment and our health.
Ryan, as you think about future innovation, how do you think about category, where to play? Are there some categories that you think are fertile ground for you and others that you think are not, or is it kind of unanswered at this point?
Yeah, I think there are, right? So, I mean, we've answered our biggest unlock this year was our new aluminum bottle launch, right? Those are our big focus and remains to be it. That's in hand soap, dish soap, and all purpose. Those categories, I think, we're locked in. We're performing really well in store, very differentiated offering. No one's able to do really either right now. So it's a really strong proposition. So those three, I don't think it's a limited focus on innovation. There's still, additional surfaces and a bunch of new ingredients we can try, but those I think we're in a really nice place. Laundry is a hard one. Laundry is a really challenging category. So in laundry, can't launch a ready-to-use aluminum bottle. You think about a 32 ounce or 64 ounce bottle that's aluminum, that'd be like 3 or 4 pounds just in the materials. It's really impractical. So that's a more challenging space, is how do we meet the shopper where they are? So we launch with our 32 ounce milk cartons laundry detergent refills, but you don't really refill laundry, right? You just auto dose directly to your machine. So that refilling is a little bit different behavior. And our cartons are performing fairly well, but it's usually 1/2 or 1/4 of the size of typical laundry detergents, 128 ounces. So it's a category we've spent a lot of time thinking about. The way our model works is you start with hand or all-purpose cleaner, which is one of the biggest trial drivers in our system. Then you move to dish because you're like, okay, this thing works. I can trust it. I'm going to try it. But efficacy-led categories in laundry is a much higher barrier because you're putting $1,000 worth of clothes at risk in that machine. So really rare to have someone start with a new laundry detergent if it's not trustworthy. So for us, that's kind of the next big focus of a category. We have some really exciting innovations coming out in February of 2024. Those are launching. It's actually some new substrates, some new, frankly, things that have never been seen in the market. So that's what we're really excited about. And how does that complement the existing carton offering? So that's definitely our next big focus is laundry. And now that we're continuing to develop the trial drivers and hand dish and all purpose, how do we further start to create this platform in the home?
Well, it sounds like you have some very exciting things coming up in 2024. Ryan, we wanted to thank you so much for sharing. It is truly stories like yours that remind us to keep innovating, stay inspired, and let's continue to redefine the world of CPG innovation. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me today. Yeah, appreciate it.
You've been listening to CPG Launch Leaders, a show from Bold Strategies Incorporated. Don't miss the next thrilling launch story. Follow the podcast on your podcast player now. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share episodes with your friends. Until next time.